Are you interested in building a career in the development and humanitarian sector? Then, Strategia Netherlands is the best option for you. We offer training solutions to the United Nations, governments, NGOs and other development organizations worldwide. Make your online application now for Diploma in Monitoring and Evaluation, Diploma in Grants Management, Diploma in Conflict Management, Diploma in Disaster Management, Diploma in Water Sanitation and Hygiene, and many more. The cost for diploma courses is 800 euros, while postgraduate courses cost 1,200 euros. Visit www.strategianetherlands.nl for more information.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time zones you're from. My name is Ruth Venza, welcoming you all to the webinar. Thank you for keeping time. I can see we are quite a number. We still hope to have more of us join. As we do that, we're gonna have to introduce ourselves. You can quickly just do a verbal introduction of yourself as we wait for other participants that we get quorum to begin. Thank you so much for keeping time and being here. How we do this, you can raise your hand. Then I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. If you're not comfortable doing it verbally, please feel free to, raise your introduction on the chat. And I can see Abraham wants to go first. Abraham, if you don't mind, unmute yourself. Hello. And tell us who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Moinkuch Abraham from South Sudan. I'm working with RTI International in the Department of M&E. Recently, I'm enrolled in M&E, a diploma in M&E with Africa Training Capacity. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome so much, Abraham. Thank you for affording the time. You could just raise your hand, as random as it is. Mutala. You can say Nika from the research office at the Academy of Sciences at Slovenia. Nice to meet you too, Nika. There's Mark from Philippines. Welcome so much. Anybody else who wants to verbally introduce themselves? Martha Ndogoto.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Martha Ndogoto. I'm joining from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm working with an organization called Coalition for Peace in Africa. It's a peace building organization that deals with peace building, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much and welcome, Martha. Good to know who's on the call with us, so that we also get to know Michael Inedu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Inedu. I work with the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. I work with the Program Monitor and Improvement Unit. I'm very passionate about program quality improvement. Thank you.
Most welcome, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm Essie from Nigeria, working with Clean Nigeria campaign. Thank you so much. Caroline Bide, working with Solidaridad, East and Central Africa, regional office based in Nairobi, Kenya. PML of team, welcome so much, Carol. Anybody else? I prefer to hear you than to read from you. Don't all of you go to the chat. Some of us need to hear what you sound like. We're doing this as we give time for more participants to join, but it will only be for the next 2 minutes. Lulu, Jemima?
Hi, Ruth. Hi, everyone. My name is Lulu Jemima, and I'm a writer and researcher from Kampala, Uganda.
Welcome, Lulu. Salvadik. Yes, Moses Salva. Haikam Abdirahim. Maybe you can go.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Nasuddin Ikam from Somalia. I'm working with UNFPS Somalia as monitoring evaluation officer. Thank you for having me.
All right, all right. Welcome so much. Anybody else who feels to introduce themselves? Perpetual Karaoke says she's an aspiring monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning officer from Nairobi. Welcome so much, Perpetual. Said Norman Alisha, Deputy Director, Singh Agriculture University in Pakistan. Welcome. Palmat Najim from Iraq. Welcome. They're still waiting for more of you to introduce yourselves. Still waiting for more of us to introduce ourselves as we also gain more quorum. In the next 2 minutes, we're beginning. There are 2 new messages. Is anybody raising their hand? Dan from the UK. Dan Adipo, Meal Lead and Africa Project Director, Malaria, No More. UK. Belinda Kakwazi from Kampala, Uganda. Welcome. Lindsay Slack. Good morning, all. I'm Lindsay, working with Oxfam from Oxford, England. Welcome, Lindsay. Christine Nyagaya. I'm an advisor from Switzerland. Thank you for affording the time. So in view of time, we are 7 minutes into our session. I will need us to introduce the facilitators of the day officially. Yeah. So that as we begin, then we can know who's on the call and who they are. My name, as I said, is Ruth Venza. The academic manager, Strategia Netherlands. And it's my singular honor to facilitate the webinar. I will be doing this moderation as my able facilitator, Ngesa Maturu, takes on, and also my colleague, Janet, at some point will also be on the call. So I'll give the opportunity to Janet and then afterwards to Ngesa to introduce herself. Janet, if you can hear me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janet, and it's nice having you here. Thank you for joining our webinar.
Ngesa, your turn.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Ruth, for the job well done, getting everybody to introduce themselves. It's such a joy to meet all of you today morning. My name is Ngesa Maturu. I am based in the city under the sun, which is Nairobi in Kenya. I am a senior partnerships manager at Rural Census, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about what we do. And I'm also an impact evaluation specialist, focusing on leveraging technology for monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And I work across markets in Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of Europe. So it's a joy to meet all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introductions. So we have this topic that I'm quite interested in. It's quite enlightening, and it's about harnessing AI to amplify individual stories, overcoming the fear of qualitative data in monitoring and evaluation. This is the topic of the day, and we will be welcoming Ngesa Maturu to take us through it. Ngesa, I believe we are ready. Thank you so much for the time, and take over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruth. So I think one of the best ways of learning is to engage with each other. So I will be asking you a couple of questions. And to just get us out of the butt, I'm going to post a form on the chat. And I'd like all of you to just quickly access that form and answer one question. It's one question, it's multiple choice. Pick as many as you can to start us off. So let me start with rural census. So what do we do? So I'll give you guys a story. One of my co-founders is called Stephanie Hirma, and she's German and was doing her PhD from the University of Cambridge, and she was focusing on energy in Uganda. And in typical, I like to make fun of her, white person fashion, she fell in love with Uganda and she decided to move to the village which she was working in the border of Uganda and Kenya. Now, she stayed there for about 6 months, and she noticed in this village, there was an NGO for everything. There was one for education, there was one for water, there was one for health. And she wondered, for 6 months, nothing seemed to be changing. Oh, is the link inaccessible? Just give me a second. I will fix that just now. Just give me a second. I will post an alternative link. Okay, let me know if that one is accessible. Okay, so Stephanie is in this village and she kept wondering why nothing changes. And initially she worked for GIZ. So she asked one of her neighbors, you have so many opportunities, so many people willing to give aid to your community. How come you never leverage on these things? And the guy said to her, "You've never asked me what I want." And she said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, you bring all these things, but nobody ever comes and has, human-centered design to have a chat with me and really understand what do I want." Now, she went back to her former colleagues and she asked them, "Guys, why don't you go back to these places and really find out what these people care about?" Now, many of you have said when you're introducing yourselves that you are M&E practitioners. And if I was to ask you today to talk to, how many people do we have on this chat? 53 people. If I was to have a conversation with you for an hour each, how would I know what your key values are? What would I know what key topics you spoke about? And I think that's the idea of what we do. That's where the idea came from. How do you merge people and how do you use the best technology to make sure that these two things can come together so that we can be able to have proper M&E? And that's what I want us to talk about today. So how do we leverage human beings and artificial intelligence and bring them together so that programs or products are designed around what people care about? For the people asking about the link, someone is working on it.
Being sorted. Don't worry about it. It's being sorted. You can just move on. I'll take care of that.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right. So I'll just allow me to share my screen and to take you through what a typical evaluation essentially usually looks like. Please let me know when you see my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So many times as practitioners, when you go somewhere before you start a project, and let's start from the beginning, many times usually sit and say, okay, we have a key thematic area that we want to focus on, and we want to know what are the needs of the people we want to serve. And in typical M&E fashion, many times people usually start with a needs assessment. Now, we all know collecting data can be costly and time consuming. But more so, collecting qualitative data can be hard because, how do you record these conversations? They'll take a long period of time. How do you mobilize your teams to go to the ground? Now, once you do a needs assessment, usually you'll sit and say, okay, these are the activities that we want to come up with. And then you'll think about, okay, what are we expecting out of this? Typically, a typical theory of change, and what you can see on my screen here. So you'll sit down and say, okay, these are the activities, and this is the output we're looking forward to, and these are some of the assumptions that we want to look at, and then these are the outcomes that we're looking at, and then finally you'll have indicators, and you're hoping to measure impact. Now, many projects, of course, this is one way to look at it, and we'll look at this today, usually start from here. You go from the ideation stage, and then you look at what you'll do, and then you have some intended outcomes, and then you measure impact. Now, the question is, how can we bring together technology so that we make this process seamless and easy to execute? And that's what I'm going to be showing you today, how we have been able to leverage on machine learning and natural language processing, as well as different types of technology to help the end-to-end M&E framework. And I just want you to keep this visual at the back of your mind as we proceed. Now, usually when you start, and we'll start with going to the field. So when you go to the field, one of the things we've done is we use any tool that you're familiar with, Kobo Collect, ODK, anything that you can use to collect data, you can use those. And usually this particular open source applications have the capacity to allow you to collect qualitative data. So you can record audio. The challenge is, if you're in Africa, for example, in Nairobi or in Kenya, we have 47 languages. Like I always say, Africa is the place where every time you walk 5 minutes, you can meet a new dialect. Now, imagine you go to the field and your enumerators or your team is there and they're talking to the people on the ground. Now, we allow for these conversations to happen in their local dialect. And I'm going to be using an example of a project that we did here in Kenya. And one of the things the system is able to do is you'll go there, you'll sit, you'll use your phone, you'll record the conversation end to end. Now, once this conversation is recorded, you're able to upload it. So the good thing is usually with Kobo and ODK Collect, you don't need internet, you can collect from the remote areas. Once this is done, you go, you find Signal, and then eventually you upload your interview. And the good thing is with Kobo or ODK, you can be able to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. And it's not subject to only this application. Any application you use essentially is possible to integrate. Now, once you do, the audio comes into the system. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear, but if I play this, can you guys hear? Ruth, are you hearing audio?
Zile kadhaa imepita.
Okay, so if you can't hear, which I hope you could, is you're able to now hear the conversation that was had in the ground. And then what happens is the system now is able to transcribe into the local language. So this is a mixture of Kiswahili and I think Kamba. And this conversation is now transcribed for you. And then it is translated into English. Now, of course, AI does this, the NLP models that we've been programming for African languages, as well as languages in Southeast Asia and Europe. And once this is done, what this means is it saves you the time of going back and starting to, write or translate or transcribe for yourself. This process is done for you automatically. Now, once this happens, you're able to focus on not the technical work, but more on the, making sense of the data. Now, I want to show you essentially what happens next. So this data is transcribed, it's translated, you don't worry about that. The next thing that happens is now you need to start analyzing the data. So, Ruth, what is your favorite thing about the job that you do? Ruth, are you there?
Yes, I'm back. I had a technical glitch, but I'm back.
Okay, cool. So I just want to show you. So the next thing that happens once you collect data and data is transcribed and translated, you're able to now start analyzing the data. Now, how does the translation and the transcription happen? So we've been using natural language processing to train our models on African languages. Whilst the rise of AI is high, people are not focusing on native African languages. We can do this in any language, but we have a key focus on Southeast Asia, Asia, and Africa, because those are the languages that have not been included in this training sets. And this makes work for practitioners in Africa, which is one of the places that receives the most aid in the world, to allow you to work faster. Now, once that happens is now making sense of large volumes of qualitative data can be difficult. And Ruth, I'll come back and ask you the question I just asked you. But let me just move to this to show what the analysis looks like. So imagine you've gone to the field and you have spoken to here, for example, 1,053 people. This is an example of a study we were doing together with the University of Oxford in Kenya and Zambia to understand the resilience of communities when it comes to climate change. Here we used a unique data collection method called the user perceived value, which was a mixture of using images to trigger thought, open-ended questions, as well as multiple choice questions. So for example, here we were just asking them, we showed them a bunch of images. We said, which of these items is most important to you? And we'd let them select them because we just wanted to understand what that society first cares about. And this is one of the ways you can now start using different technologies for M&E. Then the next thing is when the data is being collected, all the data is geotagged. So as an M&E practitioner, you're able to know how many interviews were selected from where. So here, for example, I can see in Narok, we had 15 people distributed across different places. And this just essentially will start allowing you to have a visual of what your data looks like. Now, if I come here, we asked them a bunch of qualitative and quantitative questions. And one of the questions we asked them is, what extreme climatic event are you most worried about? And here people wrote drought. So you can see out of the 1,032 respondents, 75% of them were worried about drought, 11% about extreme heat. Now we asked them, why are you worried about this climatic event? And immediately you can see from the 1,032 people who spoke, and they were just having, open-ended questions, conversations, the main thing that came out was food security. So here is where now the data analysis comes in. And you can see here, it says food security. So if I click on food security, I can quickly come to the narratives on the left, and I can read here, someone says, I fear drought because you cannot go to school in an empty stomach. You cannot work in an empty stomach. Sometimes you cannot think straight if you have not eaten anything. Now, the other thing is they were talking about this thing. Were they talking about it positively or negatively? So one of the things the system immediately does for you is it's able to annotate this data for you, but also do for you a sentiment analysis. So if I was to just unselect all of this and show you, you can see most of the people who are worried about the climatic event that was drought are have a negative sentiment about it when they think about it. And you can filter, like I said, and read about different topics and see exactly what people were referencing to. What this means is if you're designing a program now, it's centered around, what the people really think or what the people really want. Now, and all of this is powered by artificial intelligence. So the information would be coming in real time, it's translated, it's transcribed, and then it goes through this analysis process. Something else you'll notice is at the top here, you're able to see that there's different topics or conversations we wanted to engage them in. So here you see we were asking questions on climate change. We were asking questions on communication and skill development. Some were just quantitative questions. Some have qualitative attributes. And what this means is now you make qualitative data quantitative, but you're also able to access quantitative data and interact with it more interestingly. Now, here we asked them an interesting question, and let me just start showing you how you can use different, I know many people would use Power BI to pull out these things, but now the visualization is done automatically and you don't focus on the work, you actually focus on interrogating the data. So here we asked them, how worried are you about climate change? And you can see here, someone said, I'm very worried, I'm extremely worried, I'm slightly worried, that was 5%. Now, I have a question to all of you, and I welcome you to go to the chat and answer this. Do you think it is more men or women do you think it is men or women who are worried about climate change? Who do you think is most worried? Do you think it's men or do you think it's women? And I'm going to start using these filters here to show me. Okay, let's see what you're saying on the chat. Women, you think women, both women are taking the votes. Okay, men, more women. Okay, so let's come here. So just from a quick look, I am extremely worried about climate change is actually men. So men in this particular society are the ones who are most worried about climate change. So one of the things where something else you'll be able to do with the system that we're launching in a few weeks is, you know, the way you go on ChatGPT and you ask it questions and it responds back to you. Now you'll be able to do the same thing with your own data set. So here you can say, I want you, for example, to look at just married women, maybe, or married men, and maybe I'll filter by maybe people who manage the household that are between a particular age bracket, and I want to see exactly what these people said. And you can see already the filters are working. So you'll be able not only to filter, but also to be able to interact with your data just as you would do with any GPT. And these are some of the ways many practitioners can now start having data-focused interventions, but also human-centered information. So you're getting the information from the people, you're using NLP and machine learning to analyze this particular data, and then you're answering the questions for yourself. And you can interrogate and use this in different ways. There's a lot of things you can do with this. You can build reports from the particular system. Let me find a report that would have data. So just like you would do on Excel, you can export the images from the dashboard after your filters and put them here, and build reports and so on and so forth. And this is just to show the different ways that you can be able to leverage on, you know, data science as well as software engineering for M&E. Some other fun things you can do, because many times you find that you're working in multiple sectors or have multiple projects in multiple areas. The system allows you to do like cross project analysis or cross country analysis. So here you can see I have a bunch of projects. As mentioned, we did the study in both Kenya and Zambia. So I can quickly come and select both countries. One thing I found interesting, for example, is people in Zambia who are the orange care a lot about houses in comparison to Kenyan. But also the people in Zambia care about God or the Bible or religion more than Kenyan people do. If I come here and I look at the same question for climate change, you can see Kenyans were more worried about drought in comparison to Zambians, or earthquakes. Kenyans didn't care much for them, but Zambians really worry about earthquakes. And this is how you can use, like I said, AI for M&E. So the AI, the NLP is understanding the conversations, is bringing out the insights for you. Here you can see there's a shared concern for food security in Kenya more highly than in Zambia. There's a concern for safety in both, but more in Kenya. And then water security is a bigger problem in Kenya than it is in Zambia. And so that way you spend more time engaging with your data rather than doing the hard work of trying to, you know, make sense of what the data is saying. I hope there are no questions in the chat.
Yet.
Yeah. Yes, but I agree. So someone says here about, you know, it depends on the gender and the number of participants. That is absolutely true. And one of the things we are saying is now you can be able to query the data set and ask it, okay, can you do for me an analysis and see, was there a clear representation of gender? If not, can you give me the discrepancy of the gender? And proceed. So like I said, the filters were just an example, but what we're trying to communicate is if you have a system that is using these technologies in their back, it allows you to now question the things that you're bringing up in the chart. And I will now jump to the last part and then I'll open this up for questions. So the other question is, when I started, I asked you to remember the theory of change that I had presented. And I want to show you how you could benefit from having a system that consolidates information from you. So what I'm showing you here is what we call an impact dashboard. And if you're working, for example, in multiple countries or you're working on multiple projects, you can have all your projects seated in one repository. One, because it's good for data sharing, it's great for like cross-comparison analysis, and also just great for the organization's organization. So I'll show you a project that we did in Zimbabwe together with an organization called Hallow Trust. And we wanted to measure the long-term effects of mine clearance in an area called Mount Darwin. So how we did this is first we went and did a scoping exercise, and we asked people very open-ended questions. Oh, guys, you know, they came, they cleared the mines. What are your thoughts? What worked? What didn't work? And so on and so forth. And from there, we were able to build outcomes. And then from those outcomes, we were able to find indicators that we started tracking to see. So first of all, for many people who work with donors for reporting purposes, this system is great because just from this level, high level view, you can be able to see how many outcomes are happening in this project, how many SDGs or whichever framework. So here we use the SDGs, we can use any framework that you're familiar with. What SDGs are you contributing to? And then like, what were the top values that came out from your project? And, you know, what were the stakeholders saying? Now I'm going to start with the outcomes, and I'll show you how it connects to the data that I showed you could collect. So first of all, here you can see from this project, the highest outcome from mine clearance was improved quality of life. That was 93%. And then there was improved mental health that affected community members. That was 81%. And this was a positive outcome. You can see it's highlighted here on the left. And how do we know this? So remember we said that, let me find one that has data. Okay, here we go. So here we're going to look at the outcome as improved mental health, which is the outcome we were tracking. And one of the things that we were measuring as an indicator was change in perceived mental health and yearly mental health cases in health clinics on average. Now, if I click on this, if I click on the view source, and I select this, remember all that data that we were analyzing at the back starts feeding into the indicator. So here we ask people, can you describe some of the mental changes you have noticed? You can see immediately 62% of it was positive, 27% was negative, and that's where the perception of change in mental health came from. And you can go in here if you want to read the narratives and so on, you can find them here and understand why this particular thing is changing. So what happens is you have a way to collect data, an easy way to analyze the data, a way for the data to connect to your end goal and for you to visualize and see how it works. Other fun things you can do if you work, for example, like I mentioned, in a multi-country, county project area, you can aggregate projects. So let me say some projects I'm doing in Tanzania that are related, and I'll select a couple of them. So let's say I select these two projects and I want to see what is the aggregated impact of this particular projects. Immediately here, I can be able to see these two projects come together. They have 21 outcomes. They were using a framework called the evidence to action. This is aggregated. And this is great for just, you know, sharing high level with your comms teams and so on and so forth. So I will stop there and I will open up to questions, but I think the idea here is there's a lot that can be done with, you know, new technologies around AI and existing technologies around software engineering to build systems that allow you to work better and not do hard work. And yeah, I think I will stop there and open this up to any questions that people have. So I can see here, how do you offer, how do other African languages how do you have
Before we
other,
get there, Ngesa,
right?
A short interlude from Janet. But before then, even thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. I'm seeing the questions coming in. We are going to take the questions just after a little commentary by Janet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Janet.
Okay. Thank you, Ngesa, for that, for such a beautiful presentation. Thank you, Ruth. So, so I'm going to be presenting about Strategia Netherlands, and Strategia Strategia Netherlands is a management organization that provides training and consultancy to humanitarian and development of organizations worldwide. And we pride ourselves in having trained over 10,000 professionals around the world. Our courses include monitoring and evaluation, project management, grants management, WASH, and such courses, and we offer courses on levels such as diploma, certificates, and postgraduate diplomas. And we also have on-site workshops in Rotterdam, Netherlands. So we offer various courses, including gender-based violence, water resource management, food security, program management, humanitarian and development programs. And for a short time, for those who have attended today's webinar, we are giving a 20% discount for a scholarship for those who have attended today's webinar. So to benefit from this scholarship, all you have to do is send an email to send us an email to info@strategianetherlands.nl and mention that you attended today's webinar, and we will give you a 20% discount, regardless of the course program you're interested in. So our prices include certificates go for 500 euros, diplomas go for 1,000 euros, and postgraduate diplomas go for 1,500 euros. But for if you register between now and 31st May and mention that you attended this webinar, you'll benefit from a 20% scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. We can quickly go to the questions. So I will read the question and then we'll have Gesa respond to it. Meanwhile, the form is still being worked on. I don't know if you've been able to work on it properly. You could possibly now send it over.
Yeah, will do.
We had asked somebody to work on it. I hope they're still working on it. But still, we can take the questions, Gesa, with your permission.
Yes, please go ahead. Okay, so I will
Can you take
start.
the questions now?
Yes, I will start with the questions on the
I
chart.
can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you?
Am I audible?
My bad. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It was a problem on my side. My apologies. My apologies. So
Okay.
with your permission, maybe you can go to the Q&A.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first question is, do you have other African languages in the software, such as Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa? Yes, we can work in any African language, any country, any language literally in the continent, we can be able to do so. We are agnostic, to answer your question, Oluwaswen, that's possible. Are charts generated editable in Excel? You can download the data as a CSV or as Excel for you to manipulate it further if you'd like. So it is possible, and there's different capacities to share the data differently. So thanks for that question. Innocent. Ahmed, you asked, regarding data entry, can data collection from the participants recorded and inserted as audio? Yes, you can. So I think when I started at the beginning, I mentioned that we encourage the audio recordings because that's where you find the rich data. So you would record the audio, upload it, and then it's transcribed and translated. So thanks for that question. Are there any questions I've missed? Is this software paid for or is it free? It is a paid service that you can use. So we predominantly work with NGOs as well as donor organizations, universities, and even the private sector. And you can just reach out to us and we'll be able to give you access on how you can use it. How does it differ from other qualitative softwares out there? What is the added value? Okay, so here I would be blowing my own horn because we have been working on this for a bit. But just having been in the industry, I would say one of the things is how it gives you the end-to-end capability You'll find a lot of the softwares give you a component. So you'll find one that will translate for you, one that can transcribe for you. You'll find one that can analyze it for you, but not visualize it for you. You'll find one that you can feed in your indicators, but they don't track back to your data. So I would say how it differs is you're able to do everything end to end within one ecosystem. And that's what makes the platform more friendly. Can kindly share the email address. I will do that with you. You can also on the chat, my colleague Yao is here. Thanks, Yao, who has added that you can play with the platform on the link that he has posted there if you're interested in exploring this further. Are there any other questions that I may have missed or someone would like to unmute themselves and ask?
You're missing the parts where they're saying that was a good presentation. This is a smart program. I think, yeah, someone, Michael Inedu says this is smart. Dan Odipo says this is great. Yeah, so it's a good job.
Bless, thank you so much. I missed those. I think Gao has his hand up.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. So the first one is the methodology of the software. So I know like when we write a paper, when we show our results, we need to prove step by step how we achieve that. But in the software, I see different themes, but like how do they define the themes? How does it differentiate different themes? How does it decide which one is important and another one is not? So how do we see these kind of methodologies? If it's a black box, it's kind of like, how do I trust it?
So first thing, the system is custom made for your needs. So that's the first thing I would say. How does it differentiate in terms of importance? So if you look at, for example, at the qualitative data, it shows you the percentage of the people who chose something. So let's say if 30% of the people chose better health as an outcome, it'll show you that it's 30%. So it doesn't choose for you. It essentially just arranges it for you and allows you to be able to decide if that's the truth or not. The good thing is you can actually read the narratives for reference and for context so that you can say, okay, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. And so that's the upside. It doesn't decide, it just visualizes it for you, and then you can make more sense of the data for yourself.
Thank you. I have another question. So when we have such an integrated software, what new requirement is there for the professionalism of M&E practitioner?
A new requirement in terms of, could you maybe expound on that?
I think it's doing a lot of job for us. So with such a software, what do you think would be, what skills is more important for an M&E practitioner when we have some skills that can be done, can be replaced by a software?
So I don't think the skills are replaced. I think the skills are complemented. So for example, if you think about it, if you were to collect like data from 1,000 people, traditionally you would need to sit and, extract the topics, find the values, then try and make sense and then design a program after that. So what the technology is doing is it's just removing the heavy work so that then you as a person can come and say, this makes sense and this doesn't make sense. So I feel it doesn't replace it. It complements what we are doing as M&E practitioners.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. So I can see a few more questions in the chat. I will read them out and if you have any other questions, feel free to raise your hand. So how suitable is it for smaller samples of data? It's excellent for small samples of data or large samples of data. It really doesn't matter the size. It works great for both. So thanks for that, Christian. That's a good question. Moses, you asked between ODK and Kobo Collect, which one is more suitable for collecting qualitative data? Both get the job done. Both work fantastic. I think it's a matter of preference. So I wouldn't say this is better than the other. They both work wonderfully, in my opinion. People might have different experiences. Are there any other questions? Just feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak. Okay. So someone says, is it possible to link both qualitative and qualitative data to the same outcome? Yes, absolutely. So each outcome can have multiple forms of questions, qualitative, quantitative. In fact, it's best if it has both, because one can tell you the what and the other one can tell you the why. So we encourage that the outcome would have both qualitative and quantitative questions. Is there an app or just the website? So it's a dashboard. It's an online platform for you that you'll be able to access. We don't have a mobile application yet, but that's a great suggestion. So thanks for asking that, Dr. Mohammed. All right. Are there any other questions? All right, Ruth, then I'll pass this back to you. I have put my email address on the chat in case you want to explore this further with me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ngesa. That's a wonderful presentation. It's quite info-packed. I believe we've all learned something. We've all been intrigued by the software and how it's able to complement the efforts of an M&E or a program officer. Thank you so much to everyone that has been here. If you have any other questions, you can share them with us, then we'll forward them to Ngesa, or you could just write to her with the emails that's been provided. Also, don't forget that Strategia Netherlands offers an M&E in PGD M&E, and we're offering a 20% discount to all attendants of the webinar today. So yeah, it's valid until 31st of May. If you're interested, please jump on the email that's been given. The info email for Strategia is being given on the chat box. Thank you so much for everyone for finding time to be here. Ngesa, your final words, and then we can close.
Right. Thank you. I did have final words, but I think for me, it's to encourage many of you here who are M&E practitioners to see how you can leverage on, different technologies, especially around the AI space, to make your work easier. And I, focus on human-centered design, marry that with technology, and I feel like the impact we're going to have in the work that we're doing will be that more exciting. And I'm happy to have a chat or an online coffee with any of you to discuss this further. Many thanks to Ruth and your team, Janet, for allowing me to speak to the team here. And yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Powerful, powerful. Thank you so much and have a good one. We hope to see you in the next one. For everyone that has been here, much appreciated. We don't take the time you've spent with us for granted. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best in your endeavors. Bye for now.
Are you interested in building a career in the development and humanitarian sector? Then, Strategia Netherlands is the best option for you. We offer training solutions to the United Nations, governments, NGOs, and other development organizations worldwide. Make your online application now for Diploma in Monitoring and Evaluation, Diploma in Grants Management, Diploma in Conflict Management, Diploma in Disaster Management, Diploma in Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, and many more. The cost for diploma courses is 800 euros, while postgraduate courses cost 1,200 euros. Visit www.strategianetherlands.nl for more information.